Good morning, friends. Picture a world that feels both smaller and more complicated than ever, where a single phone call can ripple across continents, and a quiet gesture of condolence in one city becomes a political statement in another. That's the rhythm of our moment, and today I want to take you through a few of the stories making that rhythm feel especially loud. I'll keep it personal, reflective, and plain-spoken, like two neighbors leaning on a fence, watching the same horizon and wondering what comes next. Let's start with a theater of power that's been rewriting itself for years, the long, terrible conversation between Ukraine and Russia. In recent days, I've been thinking about what it means when leaders talk peace while also sharpening their positions as if preparing for a longer fight. Imagine two people sitting at the same table, both saying they want resolution, but one quietly stacking the pieces on the board just in case. That's the texture of these moments. There's a human urgency behind the diplomatic language and a president pleading for aid, a rival warning of further moves. Behind those public lines are families, hospitals, supply chains, and the slow erosion of normal life. When envoys from the world's bigger powers converge in a neutral city to talk, it's tempting to expect decisive breakthroughs. And yet more often than not, those meetings are about keeping options open, drawing red lines, and looking for the smallest bridge across the widest divide. So we listen for signs of thaw, but also watch for the subtle ways both sides prepare for a protracted struggle. It's a grim lesson in how fragile hope can be, and how resilient the machinery of conflict is once it's set in motion. Half a world away, on a bright stretch of sand that usually feels like an escape, a different sort of shock arrived, an attack that left a community in mourning. The images of faithful friends gathering, the low, quiet reverence of a funeral, remind us of something essential: how public spaces are also private hearts exposed. Authorities have responded not only with investigations and memorials, but with promises to tighten the rules around hate speech and to take swifter action when inflammatory narratives spread. That conversation about speech is delicate because the line between safeguarding people and policing thought is a tricky one. But when communities are grieving, when fear has been seeded into places that used to be simple joy, you see why societies move to protect vulnerable groups. It's also a reminder of the power and danger of false claims. When incorrect narratives circulate, they can deepen wounds, drag in unrelated nations, and complicate healing. So the work becomes twofold: to comfort the bereaved and to be precise with facts, so blame doesn't travel like wildfire. Back on the global ledger, energy keeps reasserting its role as geopolitics' chief instrument. There are moves to block oil shipments, to tighten sanctions and choke off revenue streams. Think of oil tankers as the physical arteries of a country's power. When those arteries are constricted, politics responds in shockwaves. The endgame is pressure, to make governments recalibrate their behavior, or at least to narrow their room to maneuver. But every act of pressure creates a counter-reaction.